Having a good day. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins, and welcome to drboycetv.com, the home for intelligent Black people. And a lot of you know that we get a chance every now and then. We are blessed to have a visit from a man that I consider to be one of the leading scholars in the history of this country, in the history of this world. His name is Dr. Claud Anderson, and Dr. Anderson is the author of the books Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, the Black History Reader, Dirty Little Secrets 1 and 2. And without further ado, I'd like to ask my friend, how you doing today, Dr. Anderson?
Well, I guess I could say express my feelings the way they used to do it in slavery by saying I'm fair to middling. You know, that's what they used to say whenever they came to measure a black person's cotton picking for the day, is to determine whether or not they're going to whip their butts, get their butts whipped for having undercut the quota for that day. So I would say fair to middling, but I'm not even fair to middling. I'm somewhere in hope that today that Boyce Watkins program is going to cheer me up so I'll be able to go out and conquer the world.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you what, you had some we are gonna conquer the world. We always do, and you had some strong words for Joe Biden. That's to me the best way to describe the sentiment that you expressed to me, that you seem to feel that there's something missing here with this infrastructure bill. They passed $1 trillion for infrastructure, and then they have another 3.5 trillion that they're putting into this next budget. And you feel Black folks kind of got left out of this. What are your thoughts on that, Dr. Anderson?
Well, to be honest with you, I think history is repeating itself for the third time, Dr. Watkins. And see, this is not something totally new. It's happening with Harris and Biden. This has happened and occurred 3 distinct times in history where Black folk got shot down after being used, because everybody in the country tend to think that Black folks politically are the willingest ass, and they'll always pull the heaviest load. That's the rule in politics. Always pick the willingest ass, make them pull the heaviest load. And that's why every time there's an election, particularly for president of the United States, the first thing they do is grab hold of Blacks and say, your vote is key. Y'all got to get out there and work hard, because we got to get back in office so we can take care of everybody but you dumbasses. That's exactly what they after. And so right now, Biden is moving into that position, because just yesterday, the Senate passed one of his big programs for infrastructural improvement. And all that money is going to the same people it's been going throughout history. And let me take about 2 or 3 minutes here and go back up through history, show what I'm talking about. You see, every time there was an opportunity for somebody to do something specifically and solely for Black folk, there's always a game being run. And I want Black folk to understand that game. I've told them this now in all my books, and I've been telling them that repeatedly through all the years that you and I have been together, that they are being used and taken for granted as being the willingest ass. They say those Black folks, they're so damn dumb, we can use them anytime we want. I'll never have to do any quid pro quo for them, because we promised them nothing, and that's exactly what they're going to get, is nothing. Now, this started off, let me go back to history a second. This is very important for them to understand. So I want Blacks to understand the pattern. See, when back in about 1776, when they had the convention in Philadelphia, they come together and had about 56 people, very prominent white Europeans, that come together in the European spectrum and come to Philadelphia and seriously consider drafting a constitution, okay, and a Bill of Rights and all. So they got together and this was so confidential because they didn't want anybody else to know it, because these were very wealthy people. See, the first load of Europeans coming to this country were the extremely wealthy white Europeans. That's who they were. The Benjamin Franklins, the James Madisons, the Thomas Jeffersons, the Washingtons. Those were extremely rich people. And they said, we want to be the first ones to get there so we can set the parameters for everything, so we can be on top of the cut and control everything. So they met and they said, well, now, but we're going to bring in 2 other classes of people. The second class is going to be poor whites coming from Europe, and the third class is going to be these Blacks that we're going to use to be the willingness ass to pull the heaviest load, because we cannot build this country without a free, unpaid labor class. And so when they met in 1776, Doc, what they did, they closed up all the windows, closed up all the doors, and put guards on the doors and on the windows saying, don't let anybody in. They sit there and spend over a week trying to craft up a way of justifying what they were going to do. And that became the Bill of Rights. And that had nothing in the world to do with black folk in terms of getting benefits. That's when you read about God, every human being got a God-given right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. They weren't talking about black folk. They were talking about those rich people. They're going to be the foundations of this country. They call it the founders. That's why they call them the founders, the rich class. And they came in, they set up this construct. And in 1789, they ratified it. And what's now known as the first Constitution. And what they said in there is that we now got this construct set where everybody's going to benefit from coming to this country except one group of people. And that's going to be the third group. That's going to be the poor blacks. And maybe so we keep Indians somewhat excluded because we've not conquered them yet. And so the next year in 1790, what they did, they passed the first immigration and nationalization law, which says now that anybody coming to this country who can pass for being white, anything other than black, you're entitled to benefits because we now, as a rich class, we got control of everything at the top. The Benjamin Franklins and all that group, what you call the founders, we got it out, and all the wealth of this country is going to be based on two things: on who owns the land and who owns and controls the labor. And that's what we're going to do now is start bringing. That's the whole foundation. We're going to bring in these people. And so that was what they put into the Constitution and set this whole construct called a social construct that blacks are locked into, but nobody talks about it. We don't hear anybody in the Biden administration talking about the social construct. How are you going to resolve something if you're never going to go back and change that social construct? So that social construct stayed in existence for 365 years. And through 365 years, blacks were used along with Indians. They took Indians and said, we're going to take the land that you thought you owned, that you don't own, but you thought you owned. We're going to take that from you, and we're going to provide special benefits where white folks can now own and control the resources. And so what they said, every white coming to this country gets 643 acres of land. And so now we're going to say, and so that was in 1860, and that was in 1859, but 79, I'm sorry. But now here comes the Civil War. And see, everybody was coming in, then got all their rights and benefits in that Constitution that was drawn up in Philadelphia that time. That's the white Constitution. The first 12 amendments are the white Constitution. They don't have any problems. That's why they don't have to picket and demonstrate. They don't have to march for anything. Anybody comes to America that falls in that second class called the management class. The management class means poor whites coming to America. You can get benefits, and you don't have to come. You don't have everything you need is going to be in the first 12 amendments. And so that stayed in effect from 18 up to 1860 when the Civil War broke out. Now watch what happens. I told you had three classes of people. Now all of a sudden the Civil War breaks out. After the Civil War ends, and then there's a major fight between the South and the North because the South didn't want to give up all these resources they were getting. All that southern land, all those large tracts of land, like I said, like over across the river here in Virginia, where George Madison got a whole lot of land, free land, all South, built universities down there. And like Benjamin Franklin got a lot of free land. And George Washington got 100,000 acres of free land. Thomas Jefferson got 100,000 acres of free land. And what's the guy's name I told you about? Name was Give Me Life, Give Me Liberty.
Oh, Patrick Henry.
Yeah, Patrick Henry. See,
well, I remember Patrick Henry. I think he might have said, "Yeah, give me liberty, give me death." Is that right?
Yeah, that's him. And but he also said, "Give me land," and he got 65,000 acres of free land. So after that was settled, and so now everybody's got all the land. Now here comes after the Civil War, and after the Dred Scott decision in 1857, which says that black people have no rights. Nobody else. Everybody else got rights. Everybody else got rights. It's in the one through the first 12 amendments. All whites, Asians, Arabs, Mexicans, anybody coming to America, they got all their rights in the 1 through 12 amendments in the United States Constitution, except black folk. That's why when a black man, Dred Scott, tried to go to the court system, they said, you got nothing. but you have no citizenship. You're an animal. You're close to a field animal. You're 3/5 of a human being. You're in bondage. You have nothing. And so here comes the system again. So the radical Republicans jumped in, because up to this point, for the first 365 years, those were Democrats. The Democrats were controlling everything from the beginning of 1789, all the way up to 1860. That was being controlled by the Democrats. And now, when after the Civil War broke out, and the war ended, now for the first time, you had some people saying, we're going to respond to the Dred Scott decision. These will be radical Republicans, which means very, very super liberal Republicans. That said, we're going to find out now, we got to go back and make sure that black folk in this country, that 5 million black folk are entitled to something. We haven't given them a drink of cold ice water for 365 years. We got to give them something. We just can't go by and say, hey, you're free now. You're set free, but that's with no clothes, no family, no church, no businesses, no wealth, no land, no resources, no animals, no tools, no land, no nothing. We got to give them something. And that's why it's like Charles something and something that Stephen says, it is totally inconceivable for you to sit there and set 5 million black folk free and don't give them a damn thing. They can't make it. There's no way they can make it. There's only 2 things that black folk can be then. They're going to be free or they're going to be slaves. If you don't give them something, they can't make it. And so at that point in time, they say minimum, you must give black folk, that 5 million black folk, you must give minimum, give them 40 acres, a mule, and $100 minimum. And that became, and we're gonna back that up. I passed a couple of things. One, going to be the 13th Amendment, the 14th, and the 15th Amendment. Keep setting them free, saying they are special people. At this time, we're going to put them in a special class, because they and everybody else was in a special class back in 1789. But this time we're going to put them in a special class. And that's why those 13th Amendment was strictly and solely for black people. But what happened was that then all of a sudden, those blacks had gotten free after slavery, started moving north and coming north. And the Northerners said, we don't want all these blacks up here. Yes, we won the Civil War, but we don't want them coming this way. We don't want them coming this way. And so we'll cut a deal with you Southerners. Yes, we beat the hell out of you just now in the Civil War, but we'll cut a deal with you. What we'll do now, we'll give you amnesty. Every one of you that fought the Civil War against the North and killed over 200,000 people, we won't prosecute you. We not only won't prosecute you, we'll give you amnesty and set you free of any liabilities and give you back all the land that you lost during the Civil War. And in addition to that, we're going to pass something called the Black Codes. They say since we're giving you back the land, you still can't run those farms unless we give you some free labor again. And so what they did, they started, North says, we don't want blacks coming north. Stay south. And so they passed what's called Jim Crow segregation, the Black Codes, which again put blacks back into semi-slavery again, to lock them down. And again, when the process of doing that, guess what jumped up? The women's movement jumped up. Women's movement, and I know I'm holding you down because I know you want to get in here. I'm going to let you come on in. But women's jumped up. Women's movement started in the 1840s then. It says, if you're going to give all these rights to black folk, we want rights. They started talking about what they didn't have. The only thing they didn't have was a right to vote. They couldn't vote unless they owned land. That's the only difference between a white woman and a white man. A white man could vote because he owned the land. It was in his name. White woman couldn't. So they started pressing to be able to be equal to the white man in the 1840s. In 1868, right after they set up this whole thing with the Reconstruction for black folk, white women says, don't get no Reconstruction for black folk. What about us? And so they went to the Supreme Court and sued the Supreme Court, saying, don't put black folk above white women. And the Supreme Court says they're not above you. They're still beneath you. But you white women are in a protected class. We don't have to put laws up for you. You're in a protected class. Everything that the white man owns, you co-own with him. You co-own, co-control, co-influence, and inherit 100% of everything the white man has. You got everything. Leave the black people alone. Let them live. And so again, the white women tried to take over in 1868. The Supreme Court ruled against them. And so that was the second time they tried to take over. But then at the same time, they can have a massive movement. They're going to bring in 30 million European poors into this country. They're going to come in here, and these poor people are going to go across the United States. We're going to develop the West. And we don't want any blacks going west. We don't want them going north. We're going to keep them into the South. So white folk can again use them in Jim Crow segregation for another 100 years. That's where they got stuck. And that went on until the 1968, another 100 years. Then they went through the same scheme for the third time when Martin Luther King started his movement. And Martin Luther King got tricked into it by saying, well, we're going to include women and poor and handicapped and all this kind of stuff. And that's what white folks wanted. So that's why you're stuck right now. Nobody's going to do anything for black folk. We're going through a second Reconstruction. And I feel very sorry for my people because they don't start raising Cain. What I'm going to say now is don't wait. Biden and Harris are not going to do a damn thing for black folk. You got to start your own independent parties. National black political parties. You got to start it now. You got to tell the national administration that not only we can't control you in the White House, but what we'll do, we control is how we spend our money. And anything that you all think you're going to get, you're not going to get it from black folk anymore in this country. We've been putting 98% out of every dollar into your neighborhood, in your business, your communities. We're going to start withholding our money and keeping it in our own communities, in our own businesses, in our own industries, and making it bounce 6 to 8 times before our own people. And if you white folks don't like it, that's tough. We're going to start boycotting those people that support the White House. We're going to boycott your business. If it's Coca-Cola, we're going to boycott Coca-Cola. If it's Pepsi-Cola, we're going to boycott Pepsi-Cola until we started getting some respect and approval in this society and somebody do something for black folk in the country. We're not going to wait for your next re-election because you just passed a law for $81 billion in that $1 trillion package that Biden just got passed. And all that's going to the old railroad lines and to the freight lines. And yet you got a black high-speed bullet train they've been trying to build down there for about 10 years, and not one penny. The White House doesn't even call them back, doesn't even answer their calls. Biden and Harris has not proposed one single thing, a penny for black folk. They're going to try to get by again by using these very broad and ambiguous terms called minorities, poor folk, diversity, multicultural. Anybody use them, it'll reduce black folks to that level. Black folk are special people. You're exceptional people. Don't let anybody compare you with some other group. You're not, no Asian, Arabs, Hispanics, somebody else is equal to black folk. You are very special people. That's why you're the only people in this country where the currency in the United States for that 365 years, the currency in the South, all of the money itself was loaded down with nothing but pictures of black folk picking cotton and working in the fields. No other group has had that distinction. You're very distinct people. You're the only people that, with the currency of this country, was based on images of black folk on their money. And now you're going to bring in other people just coming into the country off the boat yesterday and going to say they're equal to black folk. No, the worst thing you can do is try to equate unequals. Try to pretend that everybody in this country is equal and has contributed equally to the development and building of this nation. That's the biggest lie that's ever told. Nobody has been equal to black folk in this country. Black folk are the ones that did all the heavy labor of lifting. Black folk are one of the people who's in the currency. Black folk are the people denied all kind of benefits and rights and were enslaved. So what I'm saying is that yet the Biden administration and the Harris, they're not doing anything for black folk. Start boycotting, started spending your money in your own neighborhood and building your own businesses and keep your money with your own people and work for your own people. I'll stop there and give you a break.
All right. Well, I love that. Everybody, this is Dr. Claud Anderson. You know him. He's the author of the books Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, The Black History Reader, and Dirty Little Secrets 1 and 2. If you'd like to get copies of his books, which I encourage you to have your children read very early and explain these concepts to them, go to powernomics.com. That's powernomics.com. And I see Xavier mentions that he's got the Powernomics bundle pack. Yeah, absolutely. They have a great library pack that includes all 5 books and the DVD, and you can go to powernomics.com. I encourage you to take a look. And also don't forget that Wednesday nights, and Dr. Anderson, I was telling you about this, I realized there were a lot of folks that really needed some support in getting through your books. So we actually started a book club, and we're reading Black Labor, White Wealth. Right now we're on page 44. And so anybody who wants to join the book club, just go to blackkeystogreatness.com. I actually included that with a life class to give you secrets to success in every area of your life: hard work, discipline, education, everything else. All the things that helped me get my PhD and beyond. I share that with you because I want us to have more successful Black people. I'm tired of us catering to a losing culture. We are not losers. We are winners. And so everybody in the chat who agrees, type Black excellence in the chat. Also, if you understand what Dr. Anderson just said, what he's saying, let me paraphrase for you. And then I want to pass that ball right back to my friend.
Yeah.
He's saying that he's saying they keep on playing the same game with you. They keep, like the Eddie Murphy movie, you keep falling for the banana in the tailpipe. You remember that Dr. Anderson and Eddie Murphy's Beverly Hills Cop? Well, I ain't falling for the banana in the tailpipe. Well, we keep falling for the banana in the tailpipe. Every election, they do the same thing. And you saw the fight that we had back before the election. Ice Cube was on here a couple of times, and I remember asking him, like, so what happened when you talked to the Biden people? They said, oh, well, we'll talk to you after the election. We'll do it after the election. Well, that's about the dumbest crock of shit that I've ever heard in my life. We knew it was stupid when they said it. We knew it was a lie when they said it. Now, for those of y'all in the back, for the people that are stuck on stupid, now you got your evidence. Now you got your evidence. So that's exactly, so they did exactly what we knew they were going to do. You hand over your leverage, and then you have no leverage, which means that they are going to do what they want to do. So they haven't been calling anybody back. They're not even calling back the leaders of Black Lives Matter. And those Negroes were right on board with the Democratic Party's agenda. We weren't, I don't understand why they didn't call us back, but they didn't even call back the Negro allies. They didn't call Roland Martin back. So let's just be clear. Let's be a little bit smarter this time. I want to get back to Dr. Anderson, but what he's saying is that you don't wait till the next election to make your move. So here's a couple things I'm gonna lay out here. Number one, y'all know we got the All Black National Convention coming up at the end of October in Orlando. I am going to reach out to my team immediately so that we can have a meeting at the convention to talk about what Dr. Anderson says about the formation of a Black political party. We are going to do this at the convention. So just know that that's going to be on the agenda. Number two, he is saying that we need to not just wait for the election, boycott the companies that are supporting the candidates. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And support your own. Keep your money in your own community. That means supporting Black-owned businesses, creating jobs in your own community, and changing what you do with your money in order to make a point. So everybody type the word boycott in the chat. I want everybody to boycott anything that isn't in your community. Doesn't mean, every now and then, I know every now and then we might have to spend money somewhere else, and that's fine. We're not going to judge you on that. But I want you to start being economically conscious about where you put your money. Your money is your power. All right, so everybody hit the thumbs up button. Hit the thumbs up button right now. Also, share this video. Please share this on your social media so other people can see it. So, Dr. Anderson, let me ask you specifically about Biden and the infrastructure bill. So you seem to feel that they spent $1 trillion on infrastructure, a lot of digital stuff. They gave a lot of money to Amtrak and their terrible railway system. And it almost sounded like you were also saying that a lot of the money is two things you said that got my attention, and you can elaborate on any of this. One, you said that when Black folks now show up after dinner saying, "Where's my plate? Can you put food on my plate?" They're gonna say, "We're sorry, we already ate." All the money's allocated. All the money's gone. $4.5 trillion is a lot of money. So their ability to really do anything, now they got a legitimate excuse. Now they can say, well, we don't have any more money left, right? That's right. And then two, it sounds like you were saying that a lot of the money, even though the votes came from us, the money's going to the top. The money's going to the fat cats and the people whose families have been running these companies, things like that. Can you kind of speak to some of that a little bit more?
Yes. See, when they first started building the railroad lines, at that point in time, they said, we're going to do what we're going to do throughout history. We're going to give it to the wealthy class, to the rich class. And so we had the Astors and the Vanderbilts and the Rockefellers. They got all the opportunities. The wealthy class attracted all the opportunities, and they took advantage of it. And then they said to the government, yeah, we'll build railroads, but what we want from you, we want some free land, even though they've already gotten a lot of free land. And so what the government conceded, and here's what they did. They said, we'll give you 6 miles of free land on either side of the railroad that you build, any place across the country. If you build a railroad line running from New York to San Diego, I'm going to give you 6 miles on this side and 6 miles on that land of free land. free, totally free. And so all these so we had 11 companies started putting up building railroads. They picked up 24 million acres of free land and got $25 million worth of money to help to build it, even though they were very wealthy people. They were already wealthy. They've been sucking the government from day one. But again, the government gave them the money, and they built some passenger railroads here and there. They built the freight lines. That's what they like, the Amtraks and all these things all across the country. Union Pacific, all those. They put those things in there with government money. Yet they tell black folk you can't do anything unless you got some money, but we ain't gonna never make sure that you never get any money. Because anytime we run a political campaign, we're gonna deal with social issues for you black folk. We never gonna talk about economics development for black people in any respect. And if we come into your neighborhood, we're coming in to develop it, but we're gonna own the businesses we put in there. And we're gonna drive expressways through any business you already have in those neighborhoods to tear them down and rebuild them in the names of whites. That's why there's no economic development for black folk that ever talks about building business for black folk. They always we're gonna keep it in a social context. Now, what we're gonna do for black folk now under the building, under the Biden and the Harris, what we're gonna talk about are things that cover everybody. We call it minority business and diversity and multicultural, and all this has to be social because we ain't gonna put no money in there because black folk can get some of it. And that's why, and we're going to start a thing called Equal Opportunity Act up in New York, where we're going to go into Harlem and divide Harlem all the way up so that the whites can come in there and take over the land and build businesses in what used to be Black Harlem, but it won't be Black Harlem anymore. That's why Sweet Albany and down in Atlanta, Georgia, got torn up. They built an expressway right through the center of it. Every major black city in America. If you were to go in there, I can tell you how to find the old black city. I don't care whether it's New Orleans, Washington, D.C., find the expressways. And you'll find the expressway going right through the center of every one of them, right through the center. And the old black community is either beside it, underneath it, or up over it. Mm-hmm. And that's where they do it. And everything for black folk. You watch the Biden. The only thing they're gonna propose is something social. Like, well, we're concerned about better housing. And we're concerned about more money into welfare and food stamps. We're gonna talk about better opportunities for insurance. They never ever we're gonna say, why don't we quit playing the mumbo jumbo games they started back in the 1700s and say we're going to the black community and only for black communities. We're gonna redevelop black communities for black people, and we're gonna start investment opportunities in there where we're going to put so much money into some financial institutions, or what I call redistribution funds in those communities where black folk can go in and borrow that money. You want to see an example of it? Go down and look at Miami. It used to be called Miami Capital, Miami Citywide. I had that set up where I started put money into a special pot to build businesses for black folk. And in 2 years in there, I funded almost 57 new black businesses just in Miami Capital and Miami Citywide. I put the money in there and I took the money out of one of my programs for the president and got another $1 million from the Department of Labor and built and started a $10 to $12 million pot for black folk. I didn't start it for minorities and poor folk, crippled, deaf, dumb, blind, those who got hit, cut, and bad toenails and everything else and flat feet. I did it for black folk. And see, now everybody's playing game. The Biden administration ain't gonna do a damn thing for you. You demand it. And the only way they're gonna do it is if you demand it. Now, I don't mean go and beg and borrow. And I don't mean no damn marches. You tell them we ain't gonna march anymore. See, because we're not one of these civil rights Negroes that always want to march and wear out shoes. What we want to do is for you to we're gonna start cutting your water off. We're gonna start cutting your supplies. You live off of our money. 98 cents out of every dollar passed through blacks' hands. $1.3 trillion passed through black folks' hands and disposable capital every year goes right into the white community. It never goes into the black community. Black money never bounced once in the black community. Hispanic money bounces 6 to 7 times. White money bounces 8 to 12 times. Arab and Asian money bounces 13 and 14 times, and Jewish money bounces 18 times in their communities. Black money never even bounces in the black community because it never gets in there. As soon as a black person gets paid, Doc, He runs straight to a white mall or white business store or an Asian Arab restaurant and spends it. But we're going to stop that now. If the Biden and the Harris administration doesn't start it, then we're going to start major boycotts across this country in different cities of the biggest businesses that put money into politics. Like last year, 300 of the biggest damn business didn't pay 1 penny in taxes. They gave the money for political campaigns to either the Trump administration or the Harris, and nothing went into the Black communities. And the first time in history, when I ran a campaign for the Democratic Party in 1988 down in Atlanta, Georgia, that was the first time in the history that Black folk had gotten more than 7% of the money out of a damn campaign. And when I ran that year, they got 37%. And 60-some% of all employees were Blacks because I hired them. They appointed me to put on this, say, for the first time in history, run a Democratic convention and make sure Black folks get something. That's what I'm saying to you, bro.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you, Dr. Anderson, it's one of those things where it's I think that I've been talking about you a lot. I know your ears have been burning because I've been talking about you in terms of the fact that we were actually talking about Howard University and HBCUs and the fact that HBCUs produce a lot of employees, but not as many business owners as we actually need. And there was a recent study in the Wall Street Journal that showed that actually Black college graduates were contributing to the racial wealth gap. That Black college graduates, because of the student loans, and then also because they're not actually building businesses and investing, they're actually just getting jobs. We're causing the wealth gap to grow. It's actually getting bigger between whites because we have an employee culture, right? And I think that it's I think that one of the things that's clear is it's like we know what road we need to go down. The hard part is getting everybody to go down the road, and we know it might be kind of a long road, but we know what road to go down. We know what the solution is. The solution on the wealth gap comes down to what you're talking about. Stop creating employees and start creating more business owners.
That's right.
And stop arguing with us every time we say that, because next thing you know, some Negro always shows up and said, well, not everybody is cut out to run a business. Yeah, but everybody can own something. Everybody can own a piece of a business. Everybody can be an investor. Everybody should own something. You can own some land. You don't need to run a business to own some land. You don't need to run a business to own some stock. You don't need to own a business to be a silent partner and to make a financial contribution to a company that gives you ownership. So just stop that. That stupid Negro talk, that backward Negro talk is exactly what we're battling against. And so I don't see the battle necessarily just being one between us and the politicians or us and non-Black people. The battle is really within ourselves, in terms of changing our culture. And stop giving yourselves away for free. You're giving your money away for nothing. You're giving your votes away for nothing. And I'm just trying to figure out, and maybe you can even speak to this, Dr. Anderson, because we're going through Black labor, white wealth. And you were talking about in the book a lot about the slave conditioning, where we are conditioned to undervalue ourselves and to give our very best away for free because we want that badly to be liked by white folks. Can you kind of speak to some of that?
Well, that's exactly what the problem is. And that's why immigrants come in this country. They understand they come to this country, that the value is crossing and coming into America and being perceived as having value and having worth. And what they do is called non-tangible financial wealth, which means that when you come into the country, if people like the Hispanics, they come into the country, they come in once they cross the Mexican border, their value doubles and triples in value, because a Hispanic right now down in Mexico, his value might be like something like $87,000 and $90,000. That's his total value as a human being in Mexico. But the minute he crosses into the United States, his value go up to something like about $240,000 in value, just by going from Mexico to the United States. Because what he brings with him is he can capitalize on it. He comes here, he gets value. He gets value out of his language. He has a language that's consistent and put within his own people, where he can communicate and put up barriers to stop other people from competing with him. He'll go into those communities and he brings value. He can start his own, sells his own food substance, some kind of food that his people want. He can start Mexican restaurants, Hispanic restaurants. He has value, and he can build that. He has value in the fact that he can go in and go and demand that they have radio stations put in their culture and their name. And so Hispanics now going to own, in California, 21 radio stations in California. And black folk got 2 and been here for 500 damn years, because black folk can't say if you got some money, you got to put it where black folk can get to it. And by using, I don't care if you use ebonics or whatever it is, but somehow where black folk can keep money, retain that their culture and their language has value. Hispanics, they capitalize on speaking Spanish, and speaking Spanish is nothing but white folks speaking Spanish. They get extra value when they come into the country. They get value out of the fact of how they dress. They stick together, and that's why when a advertising agency is going to buy a block of land, I had 2 radio stations I owned it. But guess what? When they're going to buy it, they come down and says, you got to buy. If you're going to buy some radio time for Hispanics, you got to run it through a Hispanic advertising agency. See, blacks don't demand that. Blacks never say you got to go through a black agency to get to us, because anybody can get to black folk. And so black folk don't have any personal value. Black folks have, as a matter of fact, if you look in Powernomics, I'm trying to think of where it would be in Power, you should find a scale that shows you the difference in value, human value around the world. You'll find that probably the highest value in the world right now would be in the person of a person living in Australia. He might have the highest value as a human being. And in every country, they rate the value of human beings living in those countries, what they're worth. And you'll find out that when you get to the African countries, you won't find not one that's over $1,000. When you might find countries now like Australia might be average value of white Australia might be $750,000. Look at that. Look at the Powernomics books and look at those charts I got. Then compare that with the value of a black person in Africa that might have a value now of less than $1,000. That's why when they say, what are you worth? When you go sign up to borrow money, they're gonna ask you, what are you personally worth? You have to fill out a net worth statement. And blacks don't understand what that means. They say, fill out that personal worth statement. What are you worth in value? And say Henry, and when you hear people talking, they'll say, Rockefeller is worth. Henry Ford is worth. And see, nobody asks, what is a black person worth? You ain't worth a damn, because you don't own and control anything. You got to play this game based on worth. And right now, blacks don't have any worth of very little value because they don't own and control anything. That's what signifies their opportunities and what their worth is. And you're being equated out based on personal worth. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Everybody, I'm speaking with Dr. Claud Anderson. Dr. Anderson is the author of the books Black Labor, White Wealth, The Black History Reader, Dirty Little Secrets 1 and 2, and also Powernomics, of course. And you can check out his books at powernomics.com. That's powernomics.com. And if you're going through his books and you want some help kind of interpreting and understanding them, we have a free book club that's open to the community. And also you get access to my life class. It has probably 40 hours of content in there, totally free. You can go to blackkeystogreatness.com. That's blackkeystogreatness.com. The only requirement to be in the life class is that you need to go and buy Dr. Anderson's books on his website at powernomics.com. I will help you understand, from my interpretation, what's there. And of course, Dr. Anderson has his interpretation as well, which is obviously more important than mine. So let me, when you talk about worth, Dr. Anderson, one of the things I was mentioning is that in terms of economic culture, I encourage everybody that's listening to not measure your economic success by how much money you make. A lot of times we tend to look at income. If we have a job that's paying us a good income, we say, oh, I make 80,000 a year, I make 100,000 a year, etc. And that really misses the mark. When you're talking about things like net worth, I encourage everybody to start looking at wealth as a measure of economic success. So, ladies, if you meet a guy and he says, this is how much money I make, I think you should also remember that there's a level 2 and a level 3 to that. It's not how much money you make, it's how much money you keep. And it's also how much money you're actually growing when you're keeping it. So effectively, net worth needs to be the new standard because a business owner who makes, say, even $30,000 a year in net income can be worth more than a person who makes $150,000 a year, because that business itself could have has a very high net worth or a very high economic value, because it has become a revenue generating mechanism. A revenue generating mechanism gives you more economic value than any job ever could, because that job doesn't belong to you, but that business does. So if I had a choice, I would rather be a business owner who owns a business that makes me $30,000 a year than to be an employee who has a job where I'm making $80,000 a year, because that job does not belong to me. Somebody could take that job tomorrow, but you can't take my business away from me if I'm legally protected. Okay, so keep that in mind and start talking about that, so that you can grow your economic thinking and not get caught in these little traps. So, Dr. Anderson, what would you look at? It looks like you were doing some research and you were in some deep thought. What'd you dig up over there?
Yeah, I was trying to find in the Powernomics book. There's a chart in there, and if you get a chance, show it to your class. And it's about the value of human beings around the world, how they've evaluated them, and based on what they own and control. And you find that the African country, not one African country, that they have any value for the human beings there being over $1,000. And I was trying to find it while you were talking, but I couldn't find it. But there's a chart in there. And secondly, you're right on the mark. And what black folks have never been taught is that having a job ain't worth a quarter. A job is not designed to close the wealth gap. You see right now in the Biden administration talk, we're gonna make some more jobs. Black folks don't need no jobs. Damn it, I've been saying that for 60 damn years in politics. They don't need jobs, they need wealth.
Yes.
You got wealth, they don't need a job. A rich person don't need a job. Most wealthy people don't need a job. Do you know that 87% of all the income of the white class, period, in America, it's a white society. Do you know that 87% of them, the wealth comes from unearned income? Unearned means you're not working. It comes from the kind of things that you promote with black folk. It comes from stock investments. It comes from rentals income, from commercial property loan, everything from trust accounts and banks accounts and capital gains. That's where the wealth comes from. 87% of the wealth that white folk file in their incomes is unearned. Slavery was that's why whites became so wealthy, because they owned the property they owned were the slaves. A slave was a walking Visa or American Express card. All the white man to do is sit him out in the field every day and go to work all day long, wait for him to come back home, and he can get money by having loaned him out to his neighbor to work in the fields. And see, a job is not designed to close a wealth gap. Please call the White House and tell them what I said. That a job will not close a wealth gap. A job is only designed to maintain you from one day to the next until the day you retire. And then when you retire, you go on Social Security or welfare or unemployment. But a job is to keep you going until you get too old to work anymore. But only way you can get rich off of close the wealth gap, in our society, and you're working. The only way you can do it is if you're good at stealing. We have to have a lot of theft in your blood, because otherwise you can't do it. You can't. Nobody's gonna pay you to get rich working for them. I keep telling blacks, we're gonna get some jobs for black. I said, blacks don't need no damn job. They had full unemployment during slavery. They had full-time employment. 99% of black folk were fully employed for 365 years. Why do I want to get blacks another damn job? You want a job on some money.
Well, that's a good point you made, Dr. S. I'm gonna hit that mute button a little bit because I hear a little bit of feedback, but I want everybody to really think about this. And Dr. Anderson, I'd like to get your thoughts on this too, to help us understand why black people with jobs is never going to close the wealth gap. I want people to understand why. First of all, you can't close the gap. If you talk about the wealth gap, think of it like two cars going down the freeway, and one car is going 80 miles an hour, and it's 100 miles ahead, and the other car is let's say that you don't even have a car, you're on foot. An employee is like a person on foot trying to compete with a car, because the person in the car can go faster just by putting their foot on the pedal. They don't even have to do any physical labor to go faster. you on foot, you're going to run yourself into the ground. Well, the same thing is true with wealth. The person that has that's making their money through real estate, stock ownership, business ownership, can make a lot more money, can accelerate their income without even going to work hardly. They might go to work, but their rate of income, the rate of earning is going to be so much faster than yours that it's ridiculous. But then also, when you're working that job, you're working yourself into the ground. You're just going to work until you get tired, and then you're going to die, and you have nothing to show for it. At least if I built wealth, I might still work hard, but I've got something to show for it because I'm pouring back into something that I actually own, as opposed to pouring into something that is owned by somebody else. So Dr. Anderson, maybe you can kind of give your own interpretation of that. But I kind of want, I'd love to get your thoughts on just that basic idea that if all of us are trying to get jobs, that's no different from like it makes you think about the conversation about Black people being gay or straight. I don't think we ever have to fight. We can agree that somebody. I think Dr. Anderson went away. I think I'll get him back. But think about it like this: it's okay for some people to be gay, but what's going to happen if every man is gay? Like, what happens if every single Black man turns gay? Black people will cease to exist, right? So while it's okay to have some people, do whatever they want to do, you're not saying that they don't have a right to do that, but you can't have everybody do that. So the same thing is true with employees versus wealth builders. It's okay if some people just want to get jobs and don't want to build any wealth, but if everybody does that, then you can't compete economically with a community of wealth builders if you're not building any wealth yourself. That's not even possible. And also think about it like this, like Dr. Anderson said, and I'm sure I'll try to get him back. I'm gonna text my producer to see if she can get him back on the air. I'm sure there's something went wrong with the Wi-Fi or something. But think about it also like this. Remember, Dr. Anderson just made this point that you had full employment during slavery. They always talk about we're gonna give Black people more jobs, more jobs, more jobs. That's all they talk about, right? Well, you had jobs. You had jobs in 1785. Everybody had a job. Right. The difference was in that job, you didn't get any of the money. So really, employment is pretty much like slavery, except they're cutting you off. They're breaking you off a little crumb that you weren't going to get when you were unpaid at all. Right. So before, your payment was room and board. Now your payment is room and board and a little bit of money so you can go out on Friday night and get drunk enough to not hate your entire life. Right. Seriously, because for most people, that job being just over broke means you're barely making enough money to get by. So you're not living that much better than a slave, especially, and think about this, pay attention now. Technically we're not slaves, but if you have a job, how many people do y'all know? Give me a yes or no. If you know somebody who has a job and if you told them to quit their job, what would they say? They say, I can't quit my job. How many of you know somebody, maybe it's yourself, how many of you know somebody who has a job that they cannot quit? Like literally, they can't leave the job. They hate the job. And you say, well, if you hate it, you should leave it. And they say, I can't leave it because I need this job. How many people do you know have to go to work? Give me a yes or no. How many of you know people that have to go to work? Okay, so I want you to think about this. Slavery. What is slavery? Let's look up the definition of the word slave, what it means to be a slave. Let me see. A slave is, I'm going to look up the definition. Let me see what comes up. Slave is a person who is the legal property of another and forced to obey them. So you're not anybody's legal property, right? You are your own legal property, except for when you're at work. Then your boss gets to decide what you do, but they has to obey them. You have to obey your boss. So what's the difference between you and a slave at that moment? At that moment, when you want to go that way, you want to stay at home and watch Netflix, but you can't, because your boss said you can't. So you have to obey your boss. So how is that different from being a slave? I'm not saying that I'm not, demeaning or belittling the slavery that our ancestors experienced 200 years ago. We know how terrible that was. It came with a lot of extra baggage that fortunately we don't have to deal with anymore. But when you're really talking about slavery, you got to understand capitalism comes with a brand of slavery in itself. It's just a lot more subtle, slick, and insidious, so you don't see it as slavery. It is slavery disguised with the illusion of freedom. You're told that you're free, but then you can't do what you want to do, which really means you ain't really as free as you thought you were. And so the only way to get liberation or freedom in a capitalist society is when you are able to develop capital. You have capital. You have human capital because you're smart and you're hardworking and you are a human being that whose labor has value to it. You have your community. You have people in your community that have ideas and networks and resources that you can pull together to build businesses with. Some of you have a little money in your pocket. Black people spend over $1 trillion a year with mostly white businesses. We pull that money right back in. That's building our capital base. And we have so many forms of capital that we can tap into. And what I'm saying to you is that in order to win in a capitalist society, you have to play the game with some capital. It does not mean you have to have as much capital as white people. It does not mean that you have to have all the capital. It does not mean you have to take other people's capital. It just means you got to be able to protect your own. You have to be able to bunker in and bunker down in your little space and hold it down to defend yourself from all the predatory forces that are out here that will seek to enslave your little black butt if you don't know how to defend you and yours. If you can't defend you and your family economically, then some predator will come along, and next thing you know, your daughter is somebody's slave. Your son is somebody's slave. So all these things we talk about, when we're talking about wealth building and ownership and all these other things, these are defense protective mechanisms that you need to apply to be black in a country that is designed to dislike you to the core. Okay, so with that said, I guess Dr. Anderson may not be able to come back. We're gonna go ahead and finish up. Don't forget, the All Black National Convention is at the end of October. We're going to cover all of this stuff at the convention. We're also doing some extra things this year. We're having the Black Excellence Awards. We're having a masquerade ball. We're having speed dating, speed networking, investment groups. We're having breakout sessions on everything economic, from crypto to real estate. We're also having panels on everything from relationships to politics to black men issues, black women's issues, what's going on with hip hop. So if you'd like to join us, it's in Orlando the last weekend of October. You can go actually reserve your hotel now if you want to at a discount at abnchotel.com. The hotel, that information is on the screen. In 1 week, the tickets will go on sale, and you can actually buy your tickets in advance, get early bird tickets at 50% off. So those of you that are ride or die that really want to be there, you can get your tickets super cheap, bring your whole family, and you guys are going to love it. So we're doing this convention. It is 100% B1, and you will get to meet and be in the space of other B1 people, intelligent black people who care about the community, who want to build and want to do great things. And like I told Dr. Anderson, I don't break promises that I make to this man. I said, when we're there, we will talk about the formation of a black political party with a specific, clear agenda. And so that's the thing we're going to do at this convention this year. So if you guys would like to join us, you can get your hotel at abnchotel.com, and I hope to see you there soon. Last but not least, don't forget that tonight we're doing the book club. We're reading Black Labor, White Wealth by Dr. Claud Anderson. You can get free access to the book club and access to my life class by going to blackkeystogreatness.com. You can sign up for free. We meet tonight at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. It's totally free as long as you show up live. So feel free to come to blackkeystogreatness.com. And then also, last but not least, some of y'all, some people challenge us. They say, okay, you're doing all this talking. What are you actually doing? What are you building? Well, let me show you another thing that we're building. We actually are making movies as well. So we just finished the next installment of a film series we've been doing called The Black Love Blueprint, teaching black people to have healthy relationships with each other so you don't end up fighting. You can spend time building and not destroying each other. And so we've got relationship therapists, and every black person needs therapy, including myself. And so we brought together therapists and couples that have been together over 30 years so you can know what family looks like and know how to do it right. Because that queen next to you, that king next to you, that can become your number one ally. And raising healthy children that are not traumatized and dysfunctional will allow you to not just retire more effectively, but it also allows you to build empires with those children. So if you want to learn the secrets of this kind of thing, there's a process to this. So feel free to join us Thursday night at blackmovienight.net. You can register. We're showing the film. Again, this film is also free, but you got to come live. If you don't come live, it's not free. But if you do come live, it costs you nothing. So feel free to join us at blackmovienight.net. So we have a lot going on. We're not just talking about it. We are being about it. We are getting it done. We are making it happen. We are building industry, and we're not slowing down. I was having business deals this morning. I have $1 billion deal on the way that I'm not even telling the public about yet, because this is going to be super huge. So I'll keep you guys posted on what we're working on, because we're not just out here yapping on the internet. We are making things happen. We are changing the world. And I know that we can do this because we are the best. So put your hashtag B1 in the chat. God bless everybody in here. I love you. And thank you for your donation, Daryl Barnes. I appreciate that. If you could hit the thumbs up button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button before you go, and share this on your social media. We really, really need your help. And we appreciate you 100%. So I'm going to go take me a nap. I'm tired. After I do all this yapping, I get a little bit exhausted, but I'll be ready for the book club tonight. So I'll see you guys then. So take care, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Peace.
Here we are, clan the isms, cataclysm, great. Our people out here struggling, trying to make it in this state. Everybody out here doing it, but we the ones who late. Now family, we the ones who gotta delegate. Get that money in the power, never be fake. Stick to cosign for 3. What did he say? Create jobs, support our own. Educate the same and buy back your home. Got 3 degrees, triple 10. 3 PhDs, now we on the CNN. DBTV, let's talk about negligence. Ignorance is bliss, but we can turn it to intelligence. Believe none of what you hear, half of what you see. Let's break it down here on Dr. Boyce TV.